Hello, hello. Welcome to the Dales Report. I'm joined by Rob Roscoe, CSO of Mydecine Innovations Group. How are you doing today?
Great to be here talking with you today, Nicole.
It is. I was just commenting you on your dynamic virtual background.
Yeah.
we're this far into virtual discussions, and you just have a blank wall.
Yeah, I always like the sort of functional. It's my functional office. It keeps me focused. So.
Well, there you go. And given your role and your position, that's a major plus. I want to talk about the recent announcement of a novel psilocin analog. Mm-hmm. What is that discovery? And further to that, talk a little bit about the AI-driven drug discovery program that kind of helped inform this.
Absolutely. So at Mydecine, we've been very interested in psilocybin as a starting point for our drug development research. And so if you think of psilocybin, it's really a prodrug or the precursor for psilocin, which is the active drug that people think of when they think of psilocybin. And so what we've been doing is looking at psilocin as a starting point, and then where are there properties that we can improve upon psilocin for its use in medical practice. And really what we've done is targeted two areas specifically because we want to be able to deliver psilocin as precisely as possible to control the time course for patients and give doctors the control that they need for use in medical practice. And so the way that we've started doing this is first in looking at how do we deliver psilocin, and is there a problem with that as it stands in nature? And so there actually is a technical issue that we need to describe or need to address there in making it skin permeable. And so we're targeting making a skin permeable psilocin analog, and we recently filed a patent on doing exactly that. And so secondarily within this work, we've also noticed that psilocin as it stands in nature is not very stable. And so if you try to make a drug product out of this, it will not sit on a shelf with the same potency, which is usually a stopgap issue for commercializing a drug. And so if you think of these two things in combination, this is really what we've addressed with this new patent filing and the recent work at Mydecine, is both making psilocin a skin permeable drug so it can be delivered precisely, and then also making this same psilocin analog much more shelf stable so that it can be a reliable dosage form over time.
Okay, and so that encompasses then what this AI-driven drug discovery program is? Like, how does that play into it?
So the AI work that we're doing is really, it's, I wouldn't say tangential, but is supplementary and enhances the work that I was just describing. And so we use AI as a strong filter for our molecular designs. And so what I was just describing is really kind of the end goal points of a drug development program. And so we know, again, that psilocin is a very sort of active potential core for making new drugs. But there's a lot of potential space that could be done as far as chemistry. There's a lot of potential options. And so as a company, when you think about how do you actually do the research to, figure out if any of those potential options are potentially, a better new drug or new medication, a lot of testing is required there. And so we use AI to really filter the potential molecules for testing to make all of that subsequent testing either in clinical or preclinical work much more effective. And so we really view this as a funnel, if you will, for the ideas in our drug development pipeline. It both generates new ideas and then funnels them, so the ones that we're actually putting additional resources to are that much more curated before those additional steps.
Okay. And so just to reiterate, you mentioned that two concerns with psilocybin as it stands in nature are the wide variability in onset times between patients, and then the poor shelf stability. And so your recent patents are then directly addressing these two concerns.
That's exactly correct. And so if you think about the normal sort of paradigm with psilocybin, people are orally ingesting this and it needs to be metabolized through the gut and the GI system. And this actually is very highly variable person to person. And so it's desirable to be able to directly deliver the active metabolite, psilocin, into the blood. And so as a company, this could be accomplished with an injectable medication, but we don't feel that that's a very good fit for use in a mental health setting. And so we can get all of the same properties with a transdermal or through your skin route of administration. And so that's really what we're targeting there. And it's specifically a novel property for psilocin, because if you take psilocin or psilocybin as they stand in nature, put them on your skin, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to actually transit through there. And so this is something we've had to address with really standard pharmaceutical chemistry. So we're very happy with the improvements we've been able to make.
Yeah, and you're really using and integrating technology into the progression then of what we're given in nature, right, with your AI drug discovery program. Mm-hmm. And then you also have a technology patent as well. So what is nanoemulsion technology, for those that don't know, including myself? This is, again, I'm coming at this from a very curious standpoint. What is that? It sounds very futuristic.
Definitely. So nanoemulsion technology is the concept of taking complex molecules and surrounding them with other molecules to make them more bioavailable, to make them more homogeneous in solution, so they actually stay dispersed in a liquid, for instance. And so this actually brings a lot of benefits if you think about using products like psilocybin out of a natural extract, or similarly, we're very interested in some of the medically efficacious ingredients from functional mushrooms, such as reishi or cordyceps. And so you can think of nanoemulsification as allowing products of nature to be easily used in medicine. It's taking something that's a molecule that has potential medical properties but may not be very bioavailable. So like we were talking about with psilocin earlier, it doesn't go through the skin the way that we're intending. So also when you ingest some of these different compounds, psilocybin included, the bioavailability is not very high. So they get degraded before they actually get to their intended target or purpose. And so raising the bioavailability makes these ingredients more efficacious in over-the-counter medications or prescription medications.
Okay, so that's how Mydecine is using this technology. And then why should investors be excited about that type of discovery and the integration of this nanoemulsion technology specifically?
Absolutely. So if you think about the use of these ingredients without nanoemulsification, these are already demonstrated either in the case of psilocybin to have very strong interest from the clinical trial and investment perspective, or in the nutraceutical setting, these are already, common ingredients in over-the-counter medications globally, over-the-counter supplements globally. And so this is something that, again, if you think about that bioavailability, if you have a valuable, expensive ingredient that's already accepted and is being, used in over-the-counter supplements, being able to make it 4 to 5 times more effective for the same amount is a really strong improvement. And so this is something that we feel not only is a benefit to the consumers that are looking at these products, that the product themselves are more efficacious, but also from a production standpoint, your raw ingredients are able to be stretched further. And especially when those are incredibly expensive, that's a large benefit.
Absolutely. So there's less fall off as it travels to its intended use.
Exactly. It reduces the waste on its transit to its destination.
You spoke on the Psychedelics Now virtual conference panel, Road to Monetization. What were some key takeaways for you from that particular conversation for those who were not able to tune in?
Definitely. No, it was a really fun conversation to be a part of. And the thing that really was, driven home to me is the sentiment around taking what we're currently looking at in applying psychedelics to mental health, to therapy in general, and making it acceptable to the broader medical community. This includes things like prescription use, and this includes things like insurance acceptance. And I think this is exactly where we need to be headed. So it's really a fun conversation to be a part of.
And what do you think are some of the top things that companies need to be considering as they move towards monetizing their products?
Definitely. I think the biggest thing is really thinking about how does the use of the products, when demonstrated effective for a medical indication, how does that scale? This is the thing that kind of was a central topic on that panel, and that really revolves around, I would say, three things. Firstly, acceptance by the broader medical community. Secondly, the necessary training so that those medical professionals can actually provide these new therapies. And then thirdly, the insurance side of it, which is maybe less exciting on a patient side, but is absolutely necessary logistically. And these three things together will take something that at the moment is looked at as very novel and sort of special and put it on the same even playing field as currently accepted therapies. And that's really where we need to get to, is when the therapies that we're talking about with psilocybin are considered in an even-handed fashion by your average therapist or your physician.
Right, and this will be encouraged by things like efficacy and consistency, like you had previously said, with these technologies able to help offset some of those variabilities. Absolutely.
I think trustworthiness in the strength of the effects, the efficacy and safety properties of these medications are really the gap that needs to be bridged to allow that acceptance.
The psychedelics industry has taken what you might consider a hit recently. Why should investors who might be a little wary of this industry consider investing in companies like Mydecine?
Absolutely. I think there's been a sort of a rise in excitement and then maybe a little bit of a reset to reality. But the important thing to remember here is with the serotonin agonist, your classical psychedelics, and the novel iterations, we're really looking at a new category of drug effect. There isn't an analogous accepted prescription medication that has these same molecular properties. And to me, I was trained as a developmental biologist, and in my training, it was always driven home to me that as an adult, you have very little to no potential to regrow neuron connections. And these drugs really fly in the face of that. They allow new neuron growth, new neuron connections, and this is really the excitement with pairing that, neuron to neuron growth potential with therapy. And so this is where I think the investors need to look at the fundamentals in the long run and see we're really looking at an entire new, potentially very, very ground-changing category of drug effect. And there definitely will be, data that comes in plus and minus on that journey.
And do you think data plays, it obviously plays a role in helping to translate and introduce this novel industry of sorts. Do you think the disconnect between something that and the way that it's translated to the general public or to investors could be stronger, could be better? Is that part of where maybe, these waves are coming from? Is we hear all of this news and data and then it's just not properly translated so people understand really how much is backing this?
I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, Nicole, is that we're seeing complex data presented in a very cursory fashion. If you actually look at, the full reports, the full publications, there's a lot more detail there than is commonly reported in, sort of just a press release fashion. And I think the general community tends to compare apples and oranges trials. So they see differences in efficacy, differences in safety, but maybe don't look at the underlying conditions of the population. Maybe one population trial to trial is more severe than another, more treatment resistant, et cetera. And so I think, I'm very encouraged by the data that's been coming out repeatedly, but I always tend to look at each trial in its own box, because they'll have caveats one way or the other. And so I do think that nuanced approach to looking at the data is something that is missing in the communication to the general public and needs to be addressed.
And as you look forward to 2022, what is something that you're most excited about or even encouraged by as you continue your work?
I think the thing that's most exciting and encouraging is being able to continually demonstrate what we've been talking about today. There's really good data coming in, and so being able to publicly demonstrate that is, to me personally, really exciting and satisfying. And specifically at Mydecine, we'll be launching 2 clinical trials. We have been talking about these quite a bit, but we have planned trials with a partnership with Johns Hopkins looking at smoking cessation, so psilocybin directly to address nicotine addiction addiction, and then secondarily across a number of sites looking at PTSD with psilocybin matched with therapy. And so both of these trials will be getting launched in the next year, and so I'm very excited about that.
Talking the talk, walking the walk, and filing the patents.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate your time here today.
Thank you, Nicole.